Welcome back everybody, and this week's vlog is about how to curb overeating. Now this is a really hot topic at the moment. We have people working from home, they're homeschooling, they're walking past their fridge and their cupboard and it's calling to them, food, eat me, and our waistlines are getting bigger. And also the key workers, they're working really hard at the moment and they may not be eating regularly. They might be picking on crisps and sweets and things like that. And then they come home, they can't be bothered to cook and they're just diving into some foods that probably they wouldn't eat normally. So again, we're putting on weight. We're in the holiday mode as well for some. The weather during lockdown has been particularly good. People are out there having barbecues at home, drinking lots more wine and beer, and again, putting on their weight. Now, why is this important for people with back pain? Well, if you suffer with back pain, being overweight is one of the key problems to back pain. And why is that? Well, because our spine is meant to have weight bearing through our discs. As soon as we put on weight, we end up with maybe a big belly at the front and we arch our backs and the weight bearing comes into the joints of our spine, so causing back problems. And then that changes how our posture is and then changes our neck curve as well. So then it can increase our neck pain and result in headaches or trapped nerves into the arms. So today I'm joined by Erak Simsson, who is a weight loss specialist. Hi, Erak. And he's going to be talking to us about how to curb our eating. I've known Erak for quite a number of years now, and we've seen lots of my patients and his clients together, and we've had some great results. I've sent some people who have specific problems with their weight, and their weight is causing their pain, and he's done miraculous things with these patients. It's been amazing. So welcome to Erak.
Thank you, Rhian. Okay, thank you, and thank you for the invitation today. It's great to be here. I'd have rather been here under different circumstances, obviously, but we are where we are, as they say. And what I'm going to do today then, Rhian, is just share with your clients a bit of the theory behind how to minimize overeating. So I will show a little bit of theory, then I'll show some practical examples of the types of food. Then right at the end, I will be giving people the option to get hold of a resource if they want to take this a stage further. So they haven't got to make copious notes as they listen along today. They can sort of listen along and just let the information go in and then get access to the resources afterwards. So I'm going to share my screen now.
Great.
Hopefully I can do that. Is that still visual for you?
That's lovely. Thank you, Erak.
Great. So how to curb overeating at a time where, quite as Rhian quite rightly said, if you think Christmas time was a difficult time to be able to control your eating, you can probably 10x that now. I mean, we find ourselves in a situation where our routines have pretty much gone out of the window. And as Rhian says, we can hear that fridge calling out our name every time we get anywhere near it. So today, hopefully I can help you to remedy that. And if nothing else, just keep your waistlines in check and ideally help you to, lose a little bit of weight as well. So let's get into some of the science before we get into the practicalities of how it looks in real life. So I've got two diagrams here. I'm not going to spend too long on these, but I think it's important that people understand what's going on physiologically, because once you understand it better, you're probably more inclined to follow through on it and understand what's happening to your body when these changes are occurring. So we've got two diagrams here. The first diagram is about blood sugar levels. The second diagram is about key hormones, of which we'll talk about 3 specific hormones. So let's start off with diagram number 1. And this basically shows your blood sugar levels. So the thick black line is balanced blood sugar levels. And we're never completely on that all the time. We're either slightly above or slightly below, or significantly above and significantly below. So if we look at the grey line, this is significantly above. These are the peaks in blood sugar levels. And when you hit those peaks in blood sugar, and that's typically indicative of someone that's following a diet which is heavy in simple carbohydrates, sugars, breads, pastas, that sort of stuff, you get these peaks in your blood sugar levels. When you get these peaks, the way the body deals with that two mechanisms to deal with it. One is through exercise. You can reduce the amount of sugar in your blood system. The second one is to release insulin from your pancreas. That will also remove it. But if you're an inactive person, then you haven't got the benefit of exercise. So you're really relying upon insulin to work its magic and take away that blood sugar level and get it down. The problem with that is, if you are continually having these peaks and continually going to your pancreas asking your body to secrete insulin, eventually you will become what's known as insulin resistant, which can then lead on to type 2 diabetes. And the classic is when you have these dips down here, this is when your insulin's been released, you've had that crash in your blood sugar levels. When you're in this dip down here, that's when people typically crave the sugary types of food that people find themselves eating. And by the way, alcohol is also on this list as well for boosting and spiking blood sugar levels. What we're trying to do is get people on this dotted black line where you still have your slight peaks, but the troughs are nowhere near as significant, which means when you follow a healthy, balanced diet, it's far easier to feel satiated when you're eating healthily if you're on this dotted black line. Any questions about this diagram, Rhian, before I go into diagram number 2?
So for those people after lunch, they have their lunch and then they go into this massive sort of tired lull. That's generally because of what they've been eating.
Yeah, it's a classic. If you have a lunch that is heavy in simple carbohydrates, then you'll get the peak. The body will then secrete the insulin and you'll then get the dip, and that's where you feel quite lethargic and your energy levels just seem to diminish massively.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to diagram number 2. Now, this diagram, it looks a little bit complicated, but I'm going to do my best to really simplify it. And if you can understand this, which I'm sure you can, this could make a radical difference into how you go about planning, preparing, and eating going forward. So, the 3 key hormones here that I'm going to talk about: leptin, insulin, and ghrelin. So let's start off with this hormone here, leptin. So leptin is a hormone that's secreted from the fat cells up to the hypothalamus part of the brain, and it basically says to the brain, we've got excess fat, can we burn some fat off? So if you are following a nice healthy diet and you happen to carry a few extra pounds, this hormone will basically allow you to regulate the weight you're carrying around your body. Specifically that, not just the subcutaneous fat, but also that visceral fat, the dangerous fat that you carry around your organs deep within the body itself. So that's what should happen. Leptin goes up to the brain and the message comes back. It's like a phone call. Yes, you can burn fat. You burn the fat and the fat's reduced. Here's a problem that people have. If you go across to this pie chart diagram here, the green represents simple carbohydrates: bread, rice, pasta, cakes, biscuits, that type of thing. So when people's diets are heavy in that department, but then low in the protein department and low in the healthy fat department, the problem you have there is you're now secreting this insulin, which I spoke about up here, these peaks. So when you secrete this insulin, what insulin will do once it's present in the blood system, it will block the leptin from getting to the hypothalamus part of the brain. It's effectively like making a phone call, but the recipient's got the phone off the receiver at the other end. Ring as much as you will, you can't get through to the other side. So this insulin basically blocks it, which basically means if you are then trying to be reliant upon exercise to lose weight, it simply won't work, because you can't outwalk, you can't outcycle, you can't outswim a bad diet, especially one that's really, really rich in simple carbohydrates. But it gets worse. I've mentioned leptin and insulin. The third hormone is ghrelin. This one's secreted from the stomach, and this hormone is secreted again to the hypothalamus part of the brain, and it tells the body, it goes to the apostat center of the brain, it says to the body, eat more carbohydrates. So you're now in a bit of a vicious circle. You're eating carbs and you want to eat more carbs, and the more carbs you eat, the more insulin you produce. The more insulin you produce, the bigger block you have to leptin getting through to the brain to burn the fat. So what we want to do is come up with a combination of eating the right sort of macronutrients in order, the right food combination, to be able to keep that insulin level down so the leptin can get to the brain so we can burn the fat. That's what we're aiming for. So I know that might sound a bit complicated. Hopefully I've explained it well enough for people to get my next slide. But Rhian, before I move on, any questions about that at all?
So I think it's just it's focusing on what you're eating rather than relying on too much about exercise to lose your weight. So it's what you put in your mouth that's the key.
Absolutely.
To losing weight.
Yeah. And as you know from the way that I work, we typically approach weight loss from the mindset first. That's the big game changer. And then once we've got that bit sorted out, then people are more receptive to taking on board these ideas. So it's then diet and exercise. But you're right. Do not rely upon exercise to reduce your body weight. You can't do enough. So let's take a look at a food shopping list. So I appreciate you'll not be able to read the smaller writing here, but hopefully you can read the headlines. And I am going to be providing a resource, as I said at the beginning, for you to be able to access this information and use it as you will if you choose to do that. So we've got 3 key macronutrients, which I'm sure you've heard of before. So you've got protein, you've got fats, you've got carbohydrates. So proteins, doesn't matter whether you're a veggie or a meat eater, either's fine. You've got vegetarian options, lentils maybe, you've got meat options, you've got chicken, you've got fish options, you've got salmon. Now I tend to classify all protein as protein. I appreciate there's fat in salmon, but I tend to negate that just for simplicity. So that's your protein sources. You've then got your fat sources, you've got seeds, you've got nuts, you've got oils, and this is the one that makes people raise an eyebrow. It's a carbohydrate source. So my recommendation to people is this, and I'll explain exactly why in a moment. You get your carbohydrates from your vegetables and your salads and 1 piece of fruit a day. You should not be reliant upon your carbohydrate source coming from breads, rice, pastas, that sort of thing. Why do I say that? Well, the World Health Organization, who's in the media a lot at the moment for obvious reasons, their recommendations for sugar intake on a daily basis for the average adult is about 30 grams a day, which you may not be able to equate what that actually means, and I'll give you an example in a moment. There's also a well-known doctor come author, Dr. Robert Lustig, that wrote a book called The Fat Chance. You can get that on Amazon. And he says in his book, we should have no more than 20 grams of sugar a day. Now, to give you an idea of what that looks like, 20 grams of sugar is roughly about 1 piece of fruit. So let's say 1 apple. So when you think about that for a second, 1 apple is 20 grams of sugar a day. If you were to have a breakfast in the morning which had some fruit in it, let's say a chopped apple, and then midday you had another apple with your healthy sandwiches that you think are healthy, and then you have an evening meal that maybe includes some fruit, you could quite easily be consuming 60 grams of sugar a day. 60 grams, that's 40 grams over what he recommends you should be taking, 40 grams. If you then add into the mix the bread, the rice, the pasta, maybe the odd chocolate bar, which we occasionally have, because I know I occasionally have a chocolate bar, you could easily be on 80 to 100 grams of sugar a day thinking you're eating healthily. That's how hidden, how tricky it is to get rid of this sugar out of your diet. I don't know if you've got any comments on that at all, Rhian.
Yeah, that is just so scary, isn't it? And people don't, you don't realise, and we're not taught this either. That's the thing. This is what should be explained to everybody and in every school. So they start really young.
Yeah.
But this is the key about, and the thing is, carbohydrates and the bread and the pasta and the potatoes are always pushed, aren't they?
They are, and there's a whole different maybe conversation we can have around why that is the case. Yeah. But yeah, so trying to get your carbohydrates from your vegetables, your salads, 1 piece of fruit a day. If you are going to eat carbohydrates, and I get it, I like rice, I like pasta, I like bread. Speak to my wife, she'll tell you I like my bread. But here's the thing, if you're going to eat it and you think, Eric, actually I want to eat that, then my recommendation would be try and eat it midday rather than last thing at night. If you eat it midday, you'll give yourself the opportunity then from, say, midday till when you go to bed to burn those carbs off and allow the leptin, the hormones I mentioned earlier, to work their magic and keep that insulin level down. So on this page here, I've got some examples of food. And again, I appreciate you may not be able to see these really clearly. But again, the resource I'll be referencing in a moment will give you access to these pictures that will be far clearer. So here's an example of a breakfast. So that breakfast then is made up of scrambled egg, which is the protein source for me for this meal, sprinkled seeds on top, which is a fat, and chopped tomatoes and mushrooms for the carbohydrate. And I've got to say to you, Rhian, this particular breakfast I had at a well-known restaurant, not restaurant, well, I call it a restaurant within a hotel, that should remain nameless in case this goes viral. but it was the most hideous breakfast I've ever had in my life. It was awful. But
I bet your homemade ones are much better.
They are way better. So that's a breakfast. You can see that's not a measly breakfast either. And then going down to the lunch, that's made up of salad and sea bass. And you can see from that salad there, that we're not talking about lettuce, cucumber and tomato here. We're talking about a lot of ingredients in there. You know, you've got a lot of stuff in there. And then we've got a mini meal. So a mini meal, I call them mini meals rather than snacks, because snacks often imply you can just grab one piece of whatever, one apple, a handful of nuts, or a piece of chicken, which is not a complete balanced meal. You know, you want to have the proteins, the fats and the carbs. That's what's going to give you the balance. That's what's going to make you feel satiated. That will control your blood sugar levels. That will help you to lose the weight naturally. So the mini meal is made up of, in this example here, we've got chicken, we've got some cashew nuts, and we have some sugar snaps, tomatoes and cucumber. And then for the evening meal, it's a beef stir fry. Again, it's made up of protein, fats and carbs. And that really is the key when you're looking at your plate. The boxes you want to be ticking in your head mentally, if you have no way of measuring it, is where's the protein, where's the fats, where's the carbohydrates. Get that combination right, you will feel satiated, you'll feel energized, and you'll naturally lose the weight as well.
And those mini meals, they're great. They're easy to prepare to take to work, you know, so that you can have them at your desk and you can be picking on those things while you're at work as well. So it doesn't take that much prep to sort all that sort of thing out.
And I can remember, you laughing at me when we went out on a health and wellbeing group social. Do you remember that? You know what I'm going to say, don't you?
Yeah.
Go on then. Tell you what I did and what you were laughing at. Go on.
So there was Erik. We were having our curry, and he didn't have any rice with his curry, so he had his curry. It was quite a hot curry, actually, wasn't it, Erik?
It was hot, yeah.
And he poured on. He got a few tubs out from his bag, and he poured on his nuts and his chopped up spring onions and some cucumber, and then had those bits with his curry. And then he got out his camera phone and was taking a little video to show his clients about what he was eating when he went out.
Yeah.
Perfect. It was very ingenious, actually.
Yeah. You guys thought I was going to get chucked out of the restaurant, didn't you?
Yeah. We were like,
oh my God, who is this lunatic with us? But yeah, so there are ways and methods and things you can do to keep on track, even when you're out and about, if you want to do that. And what I would just say as a caveat to that, if you're only going out once, a week, once every fortnight, then go for gold.
Yeah. When we're back allowed out.
Yeah, when we're back allowed out, then go for it. But if you're out eating regularly, and if your lifestyle means that you have to socialise a lot, then those sort of steps are things you should be considering. So I appreciate you want to keep this down to a minimum time. So I'm going to just move on to the next slide, if I may, and just talk about a resource that's going to be made available if you want the resource. So this is a journal, which I've just sort of changed the cover really for the situation we find ourselves in right now. But within this journal, you'll find a page for recording and planning your eating over 7 days. So it goes from Monday through to Sunday. You've got breakfast, mini meal, lunch, mini meal, that's mid-afternoon, and dinner. And I've explained why I call them mini meals. And then you've also got an exercise record as well, Monday through to Sunday, the time you're going to exercise, the type of exercise, the duration, and any remarks you want to put in there. And if you'd like that resource, what you can do, and this is open to women over 40 that are looking to keep fit and lose weight during this period of time we're going through. If there are any men listening to this and would like access to it, then please contact Rhian and we can organise to get you the same resource. So you need to go to Salisbury Online Fitness. It's on Facebook. Go there, answer a couple of simple questions. Your age, are you looking to lose weight? Submit it, and then you'll get access into the group. And that's where you'll find this document in there. You'll have to probably scroll through a little bit to find it, but it's an image exactly the same as this that you can get. So, Rhian, that is me all talked out. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go back to you and I. Yeah. And back to you.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, the tracker is amazing because I suggest to my patients to track their foods to try and help them lose weight. And so I give them what I use, but you have to do a lot of measuring and knowing what the calories are and things. So maybe just a simple tracker to start off with might get people going, thinking about that meal plan, carbohydrates, fats and proteins all in one, and then looking at their exercise as well. That's sort of quite a good way of putting it. So rather than me overwhelming them too much with too much tech, which I'm not quite that techy, but I can cope with a diet tracker.
Sure.
But it's just good because you need to plan. If you want to lose weight, you've got to plan your meals. Absolutely. Definitely.
Yeah, sure.
But that's been amazing. Thank you, Erak. Just can you just give me your website, give everybody your website so they can have a look again for all their details?
Indeed, yes, I can. So if they want to find my specific website, if they go to www.loseweightgetfit.co.uk, that's my website. So that's www.loseweightgetfit.co.uk. If they're just interested in getting the free resource and also attending a few free workouts during the week during this COVID period, they can go to Salisbury Online Fitness, answer a couple of questions, and they'll get access and get all the resources and things you've mentioned. So yeah, thank you for that, Rhian.
That's great. That's wonderful. And if you you can't find it, then just email me info@notjustfacts, and I can put you in touch with Erak.
That's great. Thank you.
Great. So that's really kind. You've been so helpful with starting to get us to think about how we can avoid the fridge.
It applies to me as well.
Or avoid the barbecue with the glass of wine.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Erak.
Rhian, thank you guys, thank you, bye.
I've lost, unbelievably, 6 stone and 1 pound. My overall fitness is just amazing. The amount of energy that I have, no more aches and pains in my joints, and I walk a lot more.